The scream cut through the marketplace like a blade through silk. Lieutenant Marcus Kane spun toward the sound, his hand already reaching for the medkit on his belt before his conscious mind caught up. 20 meters away, a small figure in violet robes lay crumpled against the merchant's stall, her pale blue skin turning darker around the edges of a jagged wound across her torso. The crowd scattered backward, not forward. No one moved to help. Marcus ran. The girl couldn't have been more than 7 standard years old, her large amber eyes wide with shock and pain. Purple blood pooled beneath her, soaking into the dust. Above her, a broken support beam swung loose, its edge still dripping. Around her neck, barely visible beneath the torn fabric, gleamed a silver pendant marked with 3 interlocking crescents. His mind registered the symbol even as his hands moved. Royal crest. Zyphirian nobility. Potentially untouchable by human hands according to the treaty protocols his superiors had drilled into every Earth diplomat stationed on this world. The girl's breathing came in shallow gasps. Her lips had started turning gray. Marcus dropped to his knees beside her, tearing open the medkit. His fingers found the dermal regenerator, calibrated for human tissue but close enough to Zyphirian biology to maybe, possibly work. The crowd's whispers rose around him like a tide. "Human, stop!" The voice came from his left, sharp and commanding. A Zyphirian guard in ceremonial armor pushed through the onlookers, hand on the plasma weapon at his hip. "Step away from the child." Marcus didn't look up. He pressed the regenerator against the wound's edge, watching the tissue begin to knit, too slowly. "She's dying. You violate protocol. Our healers are coming. She'll be dead before they arrive." Marcus adjusted the device's setting, pushing it higher than recommended. The girl whimpered, her small hand clutching at his sleeve. "I'm sorry, sweetie. This is going to hurt." The regenerator hummed brighter now. The wound began to close, the bleeding slowing to a trickle. The girl's breathing steadied, just slightly. "Cease immediately." The guard's weapon cleared its holster. "You contaminate royal blood with alien touch." Marcus finally lipped up, meeting the guard's eyes. "Then, shoot me after she's stable." For 3 heartbeats, nothing moved. The marketplace held its breath. Then, a new voice, quiet but absolute, froze everyone in place. "Lower your weapon, Kale." The crowd parted like water. She stood at the edge of the circle, tall and regal in flowing robes that seemed to drink in the light. Her skin held the same pale blue as the child's, but her bearing made Marcus's spine straighten involuntarily. More guards flanked her, their armor more ornate, their weapons remained holstered but ready. The silver crown on her head bore the same triple crescent symbol. Queen Lysara of the Zyphirian sovereignty. Marcus had seen her face in briefings, heard diplomats speak her name in hushed tones. She ruled 17 worlds and commanded fleets that made Earth's navy look like toy boats. She moved toward them, her gaze locked on the child. Every instinct in Marcus's body screamed at him to stand, to bow, to do anything but keep working. He stayed on his knees, holding the regenerator steady. "The wound is nearly sealed, Majesty," the guard Kale said, his voice tight. "But the human has violated primary protocol." His actions, however, well-intentioned, constitute a breach of the Preservation Covenant. Queen Lysara knelt across from Marcus, her robes pooling in the dust. She placed one slender hand on the child's forehead, brushing back silver hair. "This is my daughter, Ilara." Her voice carried no anger, no judgment, only a terrible, crystalline clarity. "My youngest child." Marcus's hand trembled, just slightly. He forced it still. The beam fell. The wound was catastrophic. "I had maybe 2 minutes to act." "You had no obligation to act at all." The Queen's amber eyes shifted to him for the first time. They were depthless, ancient. "You could have called for help. Waited for proper response. She would have died." "Perhaps." The Queen's fingers traced the edge of the rapidly healing wound. "You used human technology on Zyphirian physiology. You risked allergic cascade, cellular rejection, neural damage." "I risked it, yes." Marcus didn't look away from those eyes. I couldn't stand there and watch her die. The regenerator beeped. The wound had sealed completely, leaving only a faint silver line across the child's torso. Elara's breathing had normalized, her color returning. Her eyes fluttered open, focusing first on her mother, then drifting to Marcus with confused recognition. "Mama?" Her voice came out small and hoarse. "The tall human, he has warm hands." Queen Lysara lifted her daughter into her arms with surprising tenderness. She stood, holding the child against her chest. Marcus stood as well, backing away, suddenly, aware of how many weapons surrounded him, how many eyes watched his every movement. The Queen studied him for a long moment. "Lieutenant Marcus Kane of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. I know your name, your service record, your standing orders." She turned to her guards. "Escort him to the Celestial Palace. He is not to be harmed, questioned, or detained. He is to be treated as an honored guest until I determine his fate." Kale's face remained impassive, but his voice carried an edge. "Majesty, the Council will demand. The Council will receive my judgment when I choose to deliver it." The Queen's tone didn't rise, but every guard straightened. "This human saved my daughter's life when our own people stood paralyzed by protocol. That debt is not small. Neither is the complexity it creates." She looked at Marcus once more. "We will speak again, Lieutenant. Until then, you are under royal protection. Whatever that ultimately means." She walked away, her daughter's head resting on her shoulder. The crowd bowed as she passed. Marcus stood in the dissipating circle, surrounded by guards, acutely aware he might have just started a diplomatic incident that could reshape human-Zypherian relations. Or he might have just condemned himself to execution for violating sacred law. Either way, when Elara had looked up at him with dying eyes, none of that had mattered. Kale gestured toward an armored transport. "Come, human! Comfortable confinement awaits." Marcus grabbed his medkit and followed, wondering if he'd ever see Earth again. The Celestial Palace made Earth's finest architecture look like children's blocks. Marcus sat in a chamber carved from single piece of translucent crystal, watching Zypheria's twin suns set through walls that seemed to glow from within. Guards stood at the doorway, silent and unmoving. For 3 days he'd been here. Fed, given quarters more luxurious than any place he'd ever slept, but utterly isolated. No communication with Earth. No visitors except servants who brought meals and refused to meet his eyes. No word from Queen Lysara about his fate. On the 4th day, Kale entered without announcement. "The Queen will see you now." Marcus followed him through corridors that seemed to shift and flow, their geometry beyond human comprehension. Other Zyphers stopped to stare as he passed, their whispers following like shadows. He caught fragments. "The human who touched royal blood, violated the covenant, should face the purging chamber." They entered a garden suspended in the sky, its floor transparent, showing the city thousands of meters below. Queen Lysara stood at the edge, her hands clasped behind her back. Elara played nearby with geometric puzzles that rearranged themselves, her wound completely healed, her laughter bright against the wind. "Leave us," the Queen said. Kale bowed and withdrew. Marcus waited, knowing better than to speak first. "The Council convened for 16 hours, Lysara said, not turning around. "They examined every precedent, every legal text, every philosophical treatise on the Preservation Covenant. Their conclusion was unanimous." She finally looked at him. "You violated our most sacred law. Contact between royal blood and alien physiology is forbidden absolute. The punishment is death for the offender and shame for the royal family." Marcus's throat went dry. "I understand. Do you?" Her head tilted slightly. "The covenant exists because my ancestors died from contamination. Alien pathogens. Genetic corruption. We learn through extinction events to keep our bloodlines pure. The law is not cruelty. It is survival. I didn't know you knew enough." She moved closer. "Your briefings covered basic protocol. You chose to act anyway." "She was dying." Marcus met her gaze. I won't apologize for that choice. Silence stretched between them. Alara's laughter continued oblivious. The council demanded your execution, Lysara continued. Publicly. As demonstration that law applies even when outcomes are favorable. That sentiment cannot override structure. She clasped her hands together. I refused. Marcus's breath caught. My refusal created a constitutional crisis. The council has the authority to enforce covenant law without royal override. I invoked an ancient precedent, the right of blood debt. When someone saves a royal's life, the saved party owes a debt that supersedes law. Since Alara cannot discharge this debt as a child, it falls to me as her mother. What does that mean? It means I bound myself to you, personally, to satisfy the debt while maintaining the covenant's integrity. Lysara's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. I must ensure that your violation leads to no contamination, no precedent, no degradation of our laws. I must also honor the fact that my daughter breathes because you acted when others would not. How do you satisfy both? You leave Zypheria. Today. You never return. All records of this incident are sealed under royal decree. The council accepts this compromise because it removes you and prevents your actions from becoming precedent. You are erased from our official history. Marcus felt the weight of it. Exile. Erasure. And the debt? Remains. Lysara stepped closer, close enough he could see the intricate patterns in her irises. I will remember, Lieutenant Kane. Alara will remember. But publicly, officially, you were never here. You never saved her. This moment never happened. I can live with that. He looked past her to where Alara played. She's alive. That's what matters. Is it truly so simple for humans? To act without thought of consequence? We call it conscience. Sometimes it's simple. Sometimes it tears us apart. Marcus paused. But when I close my eyes, I'll see her breathing instead of bleeding out. That's worth whatever comes next. Lysara studied him for a long moment, as if trying to solve an equation that didn't balance. There is a ship waiting to take you to the neutral station. From there, you can reach Earth transport. Your government has been informed only that your assignment is complete. They know nothing of these events. Will I? Marcus hesitated. Will she be okay? Really okay? The regenerator worked perfectly. Her physicians found no contamination, no adverse effects. You saved her life cleanly. Something like warmth touched Lysara's voice. You did well, human. Alara looked up from her puzzles, noticed Marcus, and smiled. She ran over, stopping just before her mother. Is this the man with warm hands? Yes, child. Are you leaving? Alara asked Marcus directly, her amber eyes bright and curious. Marcus knelt to her level. I am. But I'm glad I met you. Mother says you're very brave. Alara reached into her pocket and pulled out a small crystal, perfectly clear, cut in the shape of a teardrop. This is my favorite stone. You should have it. Alara, you don't need to. Lysara began. I want to. The girl pressed it into Marcus's palm. Her hand was small, warm, very much alive. So you remember that someone thinks you're brave. Marcus closed his fingers around the crystal, his vision blurring slightly. Thank you. I'll keep it safe. Kale reappeared at the garden's entrance. The transport is ready, Majesty. Lysara nodded. She placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Say goodbye, Alara. Goodbye, Marcus. The girl pronounced his name carefully, proudly. Goodbye, Alara. Marcus stood. He bowed to the queen, not sure if it was proper protocol, not caring. She inclined her head in return, the gesture of equals rather than sovereign to subject. Your career will continue, Lieutenant, she said quietly. I have ensured that this incident reflects well on you in ways that matter while remaining unspecified. Earth values courage. That much I understand about your people. Thank you, Majesty. Do not thank me. You placed me in an impossible position. But her lips curved, just slightly. You also gave me back my daughter. Perhaps some debts cannot be measured or satisfied. Perhaps they simply exist, changing everything they touch. Marcus followed Kale through the palace, his hand tight around Alara's crystal. As he boarded the transport, he looked back once. The celestial palace rose against the twin suns, beautiful and alien and forever barred to him. But somewhere in those crystal towers, a little girl played and laughed and lived. The transport's engines hummed to life, carrying him away from Zypheria, away from queens and protocols and the weight of laws he'd broken. Carrying him toward whatever came next. He didn't regret a single second. 12 years later, Marcus stood in his garden on Earth, pruning roses under an autumn sky. He'd left the diplomatic corps after 5 years, the weight of maintaining secrets becoming too heavy. Now he taught xenobiology at the university, preparing the next generation for contact with species they couldn't imagine. The crystal Alara had given him sat on his desk, catching light, unchanging. The knock on his door came at sunset. Marcus wasn't expecting visitors. He opened it to find a young woman in traveling clothes, her skin pale blue, her hair silver and bound in intricate braids. She stood tall, poised, her amber eyes familiar in ways that made his heart stop. "Lieutenant Kane?" Her voice carried a musical accent, carefully practiced. "I apologize for the intrusion. My name is Alara of House Lysara. I believe you knew me when I was very small." Marcus gripped the doorframe, steadying himself. "How? May I come in? This is not a conversation for doorways." He stepped aside. She entered with grace beyond her years, taking in his modest home with curious eyes. When she saw the crystal on his desk, she smiled. "You kept it." "Of course I kept it." Marcus gestured to a chair. "Sit. Please. I need a moment to process this." Alara sat, her posture perfect, her hands folded in her lap. "I am 19 now by Earth reckoning. Old enough to make my own choices about certain matters." She paused. "Old enough to access sealed royal records. You read the reports. Every word. Every medical scan. Every council debate about whether you should die for saving my life." Her voice remained steady, but her hands tightened together. "I learned what you risked. What my mother negotiated. Why I have no official memory of you despite remembering your face in my dreams for years. Your mother protected us both. She made the only choice she could. She made a political choice. A necessary one, perhaps, but it left a debt unpaid." Alara met his eyes. "I am not here officially. I am not here as a princess. I am here as someone who owes you their entire existence, and never had the chance to say thank you properly." Marcus sat down across from her, his mind racing. "Does the Queen know you're here?" "My mother knows everything that happens in her realm, and many things beyond it. If she didn't want me here, I wouldn't have made it past the orbital stations." Alara's smile turned wry. "But she never forbade it directly. She is clever that way. This is dangerous for you. If the Council finds out, I am not a child anymore, Marcus. I have my own guards, my own resources, my own political capital." She leaned forward. "I came because I needed to see you. To understand who you were. To know why a human would risk everything for a stranger. You weren't a stranger. You were a kid who needed help. And that was enough? Just that?" Marcus thought about it, really thought. Yes. That was enough. Alara studied him for a long moment, as if memorizing every detail. "Mother was right about humans. You act from places we don't understand. Impulse before calculation. Heart before protocol." She reached into her bag and pulled out a data crystal. "This contains a full medical scholarship to Zypheria's finest xenobiology institute. Teaching position. Research grants. Everything you need to advance your field beyond Earth's current understanding." Marcus stared at the crystal. "I can't accept that. The exile was political necessity, not personal ban. Circumstances change. My mother is now absolute ruler with no council challenge." The right of blood debt allows for reconciliation if properly framed. Alara set the crystal on the table between them. This is not charity. This is payment. You gave me life. I give you opportunity to expand yours. What about the preservation covenant? The laws? Still in effect. Still sacred. Alara's smile turned sharper. But I have spent 12 years studying law, politics, medicine. I have found pathways through restrictions that no one bothered to look for before. Loopholes exist when you have sufficient will to find them. She stood. I am not asking you to decide now. But the offer stands. Should you choose to accept, contact coordinates are encoded in the crystal. Marcus stood as well. Why are you really doing this? Because you acted when others froze. Because you saw a child before you saw politics. Because you made a choice that cost you everything and regretted nothing. Alara moved toward the door, then turned back. And because every time I breathe, I am reminded that someone thought my life was worth the risk. That debt shapes how I move through the world. How I lead. How I choose. She walked back to him, standing close. From her pocket, she pulled another crystal, this one larger, multifaceted, glowing with internal light. This is from my mother. She asked me to deliver it if I found you to be the man she remembered. Marcus took it carefully. The crystal hummed against his palm, warm and alive. It contains a message, Alara said. Private. Encoded to your genetic signature. Only you can hear it. What does it say? I don't know. She never told me. Alara's expression softened. But I know my mother. She does not give gifts lightly. Whatever she wants to say, she has waited 12 years to say it. They stood in the fading light, human and Zyphirian, connected by a moment that had rippled forward through time. Will I see you again? Marcus asked. That depends on whether you accept the position. If you do... Alara's smile was genuine now, warm. Then yes. You will see me quite often. I head the Xenobiology Institute's Cultural Integration Program. We would be colleagues. Marcus laughed, sharp and surprised. Your mother planned this. My mother plans everything. Alara moved to the door. But I chose to come myself. That matters too. She left, disappearing into the earth evening like she'd been made of light and intention. Marcus stood in his empty house, holding two crystals, his careful, quiet life suddenly cracked open to possibilities he thought sealed forever. He activated Lasara's crystal, holding it close. Her voice emerged clear and precise, exactly as he remembered. Lieutenant Kane. 12 years is both very long and no time at all. I have thought often about our encounter. About the choice you made. About what it meant and continues to mean. I ruled according to law. I chose necessity over sentiment. I believed I was protecting us both. But Alara asked questions as she grew. Smart questions. Questions about justice versus law. About when rules serve us and when we serve them. She made me examine my choices. The covenant remains. But Alara is right that paths exist I had not considered. If you come to Zyphiria again, it will be as honored scholar, not as erased memory. It will be as someone who taught a young girl about courage and taught her mother about the limits of perfect control. I do not apologize for my decisions. But I acknowledge their cost. Perhaps that is the beginning of wisdom. Perhaps that is something you understood long before I did. The choice is yours, Marcus Kane. It always has been. Whatever you decide, know that somewhere among the stars, two people breathe easier because you were exactly who you are. Fly well if you fly. Live well if you stay. You earned both. The crystal dimmed. Marcus set it beside Alara's gift on his desk, two pieces of impossible history made solid. Through his window, stars began emerging, cold and distant and full of promise. He thought about roses and lectures about the safe life he'd built from the wreckage of exile. He thought about a little girl with amber eyes and a queen who navigated impossible choices. He thought about the universe waiting beyond Earth's comfortable gravity. The decision didn't come all at once. But it came. Marcus activated his calm, beginning the process that would uproot everything again. Because some debts couldn't be measured or satisfied. They could only be honored by living in alignment with the moment that created them. He'd saved a life once without thinking twice. Now he'd let that life save his in return.